In the last video, we looked at my favorite new coasters that I rode in 2021. Today, I'm going to be looking into the future and speculate my top 20 bucket list coasters in Europe. For those of you who don't know, my brother and I have been planning a trip spanning 7 countries on the continent for next year. A part of this trip are 24 parks I'm hoping to visit for the first time, which in turn will come with 163 potential coaster credits. If you're interested in hearing about every country and park we're looking to visit for the first time, go check out my 10,000 subscriber announcement video, which will be linked in the description. Following our trip to Europe, I'll be sure to make an official list of my favorite coasters on the continent, but it's always fun to speculate first, so we'll be taking a look at my top 20 bucket list coasters we're planning to do. The way I'll be formulating this ranking is mostly by curiosity surrounding how a coaster will ride versus just the speculated quality alone. So with that being said, let's get straight into it. These are my top 20 bucket list coasters on the Europe trip. Number 20, Lost Gravity at Walibi, Holland. My first mock Big Dipper coaster looks to have a bizarre layout and appearance, yet sometimes this can be the recipe for a shockingly underrated coaster. The compact nature of some of the elements combined with the sudden drops and hills in addition to the theming makes this a contender for the second best ride at Walibi, Holland. Number 19, Karacho at Erlebnispark Tripsdrill. One of the most promising launch coasters on the trip has a punchy layout and collection of theming. I love the sound of a 0 to 56 mph launch in 1.6 seconds, plus the surprise inversion in the darkness. I don't know why Gerstlauer hasn't built more coasters like Karacho in the States, but nevertheless I can't wait to get the opportunity to check this thing out. Number 18, Fury at Bobbejaanland. Another Gerstlauer Infinity coaster is the only ride of its kind to have a forwards-backwards voting system. It'll be a treat riding this for the first time, not knowing if we'll be flying through the funky course forwards or backwards. Even without this feature though, the layout looks awesome and I'm a big fan of some of the medieval theming surrounding the ride. If all goes according to plan, Fury could become one of the best coasters I ride in Belgium. Number 17, Troy at Toverland. One of GCI's most acclaimed coasters to date is this monster of a ride in the Netherlands. Its layout has an equal balance of high and low elements, which usually formulate some of the manufacturer's best coasters. In recent years, I've heard mixed things of whether or not this coaster lives up to the hype it once generated, but that's mostly why it ranks so high. I can't wait to see how good this ride is for myself, in addition to hearing its iconic soundtrack. Number 16, Rouge Bananen at Tivoli Gardens. This ancient wood coaster from 1914 will become my oldest credit I will have ever experienced when I ride it. Some parks with these old scenic railway coasters have modified them over time and stripped away them from their classic ambiance. Tivoli Gardens is not one of those parks, as there is a brakeman or woman regulating the speed of the attraction at all times. This is extremely uncommon and unique, plus the ride looks to offer great airtime and is beautifully maintained from what I hear. At first glance, you wouldn't expect a ride like this to make the list, but it really looks like that much fun. Number 15, Tornado at Bakken. Staying in Denmark and heading a half hour north, Tornado looks to be Bakken's best operating coaster. The rare Intamed spinner design is made even more uncommon due to its unique upwards launch. From those who have ridden this coaster, the transition coming out of the launch is one of the most intense moments they've ever experienced. Towards the end of the ride, the layout fizzles out into a standard family thrill spinning coaster, but the beginning really excites me. Number 14, Fluch von Novgorod at Hansa Park. Despite Carden being in the same park, don't let that take away from its little brother next door. This coaster has one of the most powerful launches in the world, taking riders from 0 to 62.1 mph in 1.4 seconds in the darkness. Then you have a decent looking outdoor section before a lift hill and drop in the darkness again. I'm starting to think the manufacturer deserves more love after looking at some of their European projects, because these rides look awesome. Number 13, Colossos Kampf der Giganten at Heide Park. One of the 4 Intamed prefabs worldwide seems to get the least amount of recognition, and I've always wondered why that is because this coaster looks fantastic. It has the same few camelbacks as El Toro in the first half before ending out in a constant series of smaller hills with that Wicker Man monument. The only thing that looks to take away from this ride is the dull helix in the middle section, but otherwise it has the recipe to be an underrated Intamed coaster. Number 12, Puritan at GeForce. For whatever reason, I seem to always forget that I'm riding this coaster on our trip. Maybe that's because it's getting so overshadowed by phonics, but in whatever case, it looks amazing. It only tops out at a height of 102 feet, but reminds me of Maverick with its ejector pops and rapid low-to-the-ground transitions. Looking at it closer, I have really high hopes for Puritan, especially given that it's one of the few megalite coasters with the reputation suggesting it could be a truly elite coaster. Number 11, Conda at Walibi, Belgium. The only reason this coaster doesn't place higher is because a lot of the elements seem to offer a fairly predictable sensation to me. Still, it has a world-class layout that seems to run a bit slower than most of us were expecting, but still great. As long as it has the elements it does, it looks like it could be impossible not to come off with a smile on my face. Number 10, Fly at Phantasialand. When this coaster initially opened, it would have been towards the bottom of the list, but now that more people have ridden it, it seems to only be receiving rave reviews. The first launch flying coaster by Vekoma looks to have several near misses, positive Gs, and airtime despite the prone position you ride in. Plus, given that it's at Phantasialand of all parks, the ride and surrounding land looks to be immaculately well themed. Now that we're starting to hear such good things out of the ride, I have very high expectations for Fly. Number 9, Phonics at Fair Up Summerland. Vecoma's first Wildcat model will be opening in the spring of this year and looks to showcase some of the best elements to date. We've got a mix of sustained and quick inversions, floater and ejector airtime, plus some moments that look to give high positive G-force. If it runs anything like a certain coaster by Vekoma we'll get to in a second, it'll be Denmark's best coaster of all time. Number 8, Untamed at Walibi, Holland. I remember when this coaster was getting built, it looked to me like it would ride similar to Wicked Cyclone at Six Flags New England, which is a ride I love. But when it opened and people started saying it's the best of the small-scale iBox coasters, I was really taken back. RMC seems to never go wrong with their projects, and if Untamed's reputation is true, it'll be a slam dunk for sure. Every element looks to hit, and they threw in some of the best stuff they could in this layout. Watch Untamed easily be the country's best coaster in my rankings. Number 7, Terran at Phantasialand. Although the quality of this ride alone might land slightly lower on this list, something about this ride really intrigues me a lot. Perhaps it's the eye-catching theming diving in and around an ancient village, or maybe it's the pure fun layout with just a lap bar. Could it be the theatrical music score on and off ride? I don't know, but if one thing's for sure, Terran is going to be a highlight of the entire trip. Number 6, Lek Coaster at Legendia. Vecoma's undisputed best coaster was also one of the first of their next-gen projects. This is the ride that really showed us what direction the company was heading. It has an insane amount of positives from what I hear, alongside flawless ejector airtime hills and a fast-paced roll threading the station. Plus, it just looks visually impressive with it twisting every which way, not to mention its setting along the water. Many of you will tell you that this is one of the best coasters they've ever been on, so again, I have high expectations for this ride. Number 5, Hyperion at Energylandia. Similar to Terran, I think a lot of the sensations on this ride might be somewhat predictable, yet something about it gets me so excited. The layout Intamin came up with here is virtually perfect with a sprawling first half and low to the ground second half. The only dead spot from the looks of it seems to be that middle camelback, but the rest seems perfect. Could this be one of Europe's best coasters? Only time will tell, but I really think it has the potential. Number 4, Der Schwarzkarten at Hansa Park. Gerstlauer's crown jewel is one of the most intense looking rides in the world. It has a mesmerizing beginning and end that I won't spoil for those of you who don't know about it, but then the outdoor section is absurd. Imagine a 200 plus foot drop in the darkness, I-305 light transitions, and a blitz of positive Gs. I can't imagine how this ride will feel, which is why it ranks as high as 4 on this list. Number 3, Expedition GeForce at Holiday Park. One of the most iconic Intamin coasters out there has been regarded for the longest time to be Germany's best roller coaster. It has a layout that speaks for itself, ejector airtime, overbank turns, and more ejector airtime in a wooded setting. A back row ride on Expedition GeForce looks to be a religious experience for real. I can't wait to ride this thing. Number 2, Ride to Happiness at Plopsaland de Pan. I think most of us were expecting Conda to be Belgium's best coaster last year, but when Ride to Happiness opened under the radar, people were shook by it. This coaster now has one of the best reputations of any ride in the world. Basically imagine Time Traveler amped up by 100. The spinning is made to be more intense, the elements are more disorienting, the soundtrack is fast-paced, and the theming is great. I kinda look at this ride as perfect since it seems to do just about everything well. More so, I think Ride to Happiness has a chance to become one of the best coasters ever built. Number 1, Zadra at Energylandia. Something tells me that I just have to give this ride the top spot. It's basically RMC's second crown jewel rivaling Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point. It has the airtime, intensity, inversions, and especially pacing to easily match that coaster. If any ride on this trip has the potential to be my new favorite coaster I've ever been on, I think Zadra is her best shot. Everything about this ride appears to be flawless, so I look forward to seeing how it compares to my current number 1 RMC and coaster overall, Steel Vengeance. But those are just a few of the many attractions I'm planning to experience in Europe this year. I don't think I've ever been this excited for a trip, given that I can hardly believe it's actually happening. So many of these rides look to be world-class coasters, and I can't wait to come back and edit this list to make it an official ranking. With that being said, thank you all so much for tuning in, and I'll see you very, very soon. Bye, guys.